Hey everyone, and welcome back to Earlville Library District's Virtual Crochet. Today's the day we're going to finally assemble our blanket. Let me get mine. So you saw in the last intro that I had already assembled my blanket, and this is the video where you're going to get to learn how to do that too. So hopefully you've got all 10 of your granny squares. I may or may not have just finished like the remaining 6 today because I was behind, but I got there in time for this video. So we're gonna put it all together like this, and I'm gonna have different colors because I've made 2 of them for demonstration purposes. And I'm gonna try to get you up close so you can see what's going on, and I'll take you through the assembly process. Before we get started, you should know that my directions are different than the instructions from the pattern. This is the Checkerboard Textures Crochet Throw by Yarnspiration. There is a link down in the description box, or you can come in and get a hard copy of the pattern from us at the library. The pattern is free, whether you get it from us or online, and they suggest like a sewing whip stitch to get the job done of assembling all of the squares. And I personally hate sewing, so I'm going to slip stitch them together with a crochet hook. So feel free to choose whatever instructions you prefer. If you want to follow the written pattern instructions by Yarnspirations, go for it. You're going to get a lovely blanket all the same. And if you also hate sewing and you want to slip stitch with me, these are the instructions for you. I chose the slip stitch because I don't have to cut a long piece of thread that I have to kind of guess how long I'm going to need. I don't have to do as many joins. I just prefer it. So, the caveat here is I believe it does give you a bit more of a ridge if you're actually crocheting a stitch to close the 2 seams together. So there is that. There's pros and cons either way, and you'll just have to choose what's right for you. So we're about to go in. The next thing you're going to see is a view of my craft room floor and all of our squares, and we'll discuss how to lay them out and get started sewing them, well, crocheting them together. All right, let's go. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to lay out all of the squares so they're in the right order so that you can just zip right along and stitch up each seam. So you can see how I've laid out all 10 of my granny squares, and they are in an every other sort of order, and you can find this order. On the last page of your pattern, there's a grid here that shows where each square is supposed to go. So I've just laid out my granny squares as a beginner example here as we get started, and then I'll place each of my patterned squares in the gaps according to the pattern on the graph. The first square we're looking for is the cross-stitched square, and it looks for me like this. Make sure everything's facing up, going the right direction. Square number 2 is the back loops square. For me that looks like this. Next square is the front post treble. Mine looks like this. Next square is the popcorn. Mine looks like this. Next square is the raised treble. Mine looks like this. Number 6, front post double crochet, that waffly one. Back loop and front loop. Front post double crochet around single crochet. Square shells with front post and back post stitches. Here's mine. And double crochet and slip stitch. Alright, this is the way your blanket should look when it's finished. So now we're going to flip it all over, and to do that I'm going to turn every square over and I'm going to flip where the patterned squares live so that when we sew it together it'll flip over the correct way. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to flip the 2 granny squares in this row so that they're upside down, and then I'm going to flip these 2 patterned squares over, but I'm also going to swap them. Same thing down here, flipping my granny squares over, I'm gonna flip over the pattern squares and then I'm gonna swap them. So keep doing that until you've flipped the whole blanket. Okay, now's the fun part. We get to seam it all up. So I think you can see from the big camera that I am down here at the very edge of my project. I haven't woven in any of my loose ends, and you can totally feel free to do that before you start this. If you've been doing that all along, great, good for you. You're a better person than me. But I'm just gonna do it all at the end. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start here at the edge. You can see I didn't do a great job of gauging my squares, so this one's quite a bit bigger than this one, but it'll be fine. Anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for, I'll show you on the white one, the loops that are a part of our seam. So as we look at the edge of our project, we can see that we have those two loops. We have a front loop and a back loop, and we're gonna continuously be going through this back loop here. This guy. This is the one we're gonna pick, and we're gonna pick this loop from both sides of the project. We're not gonna go through both loops together. We'll just be inserting our hook into one loop from this side and one loop from the other square that we're attaching it to. So everything's upside down and everything's rearranged backwards. So I'm here on the floor. You can pick these up and, you know, take them to where you would like to work. But I'm just gonna sit down here on the floor, pop in a movie, and knock this out. So what I do first is I'm gonna choose to use white thread because my granny squares are all in white. So I figure that color will blend in. If you use a contrasting color or a color you haven't used yet in your project, you will see the color of the seam showing through. So I'm gonna grab my white yarn. What I'm gonna do first is make a slip knot with my yarn, and I'll insert my hook into that slip knot and cinch it up. I'm going to head right into my corner loopy right here, and I'm also going to head into the corner loopy from the underside of the other square, and then I'll keep my tail separate over here and set up my hands and yarn over, and I'm going to pull my yarn through not only both of those corner loopies but also through the loop on my hook, just like that. And now we've joined these two squares for the first time at the corner loopies. Now I'm gonna go along and sew this seam together. So I'm gonna use this needle for an example, and I'm gonna insert my hook into the back loop of the outside square, and then right next door I'm gonna grab the closest loop on the first stitch, and that's this one right here, and go through there. But I'm gonna use my crochet hook. So I'm gonna go back in and grab my working yarn, and I'm gonna go in those loops that I just showed you, both of them, and then I will yarn over and draw through everything, the two loops from the seam and the loop on my hook. And then I'm gonna do the same thing, move down one stitch. I'm gonna go in the back loop of the first stitch and the loop that's closest on the next stitch of the next square. Yarn over through everything and insert my hook to the back loop of the first square. Find the closest loop on the next stitch, so you're getting those two inside loops each time. Yarn over back through those loops and through the loop on your hook. And you're going to continue sewing your pieces together like this on down the line. And you can see it forms a little seam right here. But once you turn the piece around, you hardly notice that seam because it's the same color as your project. So it just looks like those bits have been meshed together. All right, I'm gonna lay this back down so that you can see what it looks like on the floor. And then we'll speed it up, and I'll meet you back when we're at the corner here and we have to go through more of our loopies. Okay, so I've made it to the end of my square here, and now I can just put a slip stitch like we've been doing in this corner loopy, and I'm gonna go underneath and out the corner loopy on the next door square, yarn over, pull my yarn through, and through the loop on my hook. And now I've got a whole square attached right here on this seam. Now I'm ready to move on and connect these two. I'm not going to cut my yarn. I'm going to keep going. So let's move you back. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to insert my hook through the top of the corner loopy of my next white. I'm going to insert my hook in the top of the corner loopy of my white square that's coming next. And then I'll go under and into the corner loopy of the square next door. Then I can yarn over, draw my hook through those loopies and through the yarn on my hook. Now these guys are attached all at the corner here. And then when we go back and do the perpendicular lines here, we will again join into this corner loopy situation here, which will secure the whole corner. Right now there's only half a corner secured for each square. So then we can continue in the same fashion. I'll get nice and close. So you'll go in the inside loopy for the white square and the inside loopy of your patterned square. Yarn over through the stitches, yarn over through the loop on your hook, and find the next inside loopy and the next inside loop, yarn over back through, all the things, and continue going in that manner all the way down. Connect all your squares at the corners until you get to the end of the row. All right, I'm gonna let this process go real fast, and you can see me make a whole blanket. I don't know if you can see me. I'll see you in a little bit. I've made it all the way down the row for my first round, and I'm gonna insert my hook into my last corner loopies here, yarn over, draw through everything, and now I can cut my yarn with a long tail here, and I can send it back through my working loop, cinch it up, and then this tail I can weave in later. And now I'm ready to move on to my next row and continue this way until I'm done. Okay, so I finished all of the vertical seams and now I'm ready to start these horizontal ones, and everything works the same way. We're going to use a slip knot to start off with, and I'm going to join my 2 squares by the little corner loopies. So I'm going to insert my hook in the bottom square, corner loopy, and in the top square, corner loopy. Yarn over, draw through everything for that slip stitch. Get that tail out of the way. And then we're just going to insert our hook into both of those inside V's, the inside loops of our first stitches. Yarn over through everything, insert our hook into the next inside set of stitches, yarn over through everything, and there you go. And when you get to another corner, like over here, you're just going to make sure that you go through your diagonal corners, the ones that you haven't worked yet. Like you worked the 2 going up and down, now you're going to work the other 2 going side to side, and continue on your merry way. And I'll see you at the end. And we're done. Wow. All right, an hour and a half later and a bit of a crick in my back, and all of my seams are joined, and I have this blanket number 2. You can see the good side, and then this is the side with the seams. They're a little bit raised. You can see that there's a little bit of extra texture there on the back, but I think it's worth it for the continuous seam that you get to run when you use the crochet stitch instead of like a sewing whip stitch. But like I said, your preference is, you know, whatever you want to do. All right, blanket number 2. However, we're not done yet, because we wouldn't be done yet. This is the project that never ends, because we still have a border to do. And on this blanket, you can see it's my yellow stripe here, the little rainbow, and then I ended with some blue, because once again, just trying to use up all my scrap yarn. I got some scrap yarn. That's just one of them. I got another one. This room is just all yarn, so I need to use it up. Anyway, so that is what we will be working on next time, and hopefully that'll be the last video. You'll have a fresh, finished, beautiful blanket with lots of texture and lots of squares. And I'm so excited to be able to wrap up this project with you guys. Remember, if you're following along at home, I'd love to see pictures to know that you're enjoying it at home too. The crochet group is meeting in person the second and last Wednesdays of each month. There is a calendar on display at the library. And if you have any questions about anything you've seen in these tutorials, feel free to give me a call, see if I'm at the library and have a minute to stop and look at your project. I'd be happy to. Okay, thanks so much. Please check out our other YouTube videos that we've been posting. It's summertime now, so the library has a lot to offer in terms of other programs not crochet related. We've got a book club you can join, podcasts you can watch here on YouTube, and fun adult craft mystery bags to take home. If that's something you're interested in, give us a call and sign up so that you can try out a new mystery craft each week. And grab a copy of Kate Reed Petty's True Story. That's the book we're going to read for our book club at the end of the month. All right, that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.